My name is Alexander. People call me Alexander when it is easier for them. But at home I am just Sasha. I fought for Ukraine. I am not a hero in my own eyes. I am a man who did what he had to do. Because Kyiv is not just a city. Kyiv is my people, my mother's grave, my wife's hands, my son's school. It was February 22nd, 2022. 2 days before the big Udar, the full-scale invasion that everyone now counts from February 24th. Back then, we still tried to pretend it would not happen. Or maybe we just wanted one more night to sleep like normal men. We were already in position on the outskirts, with my friends from the unit. Cold sat inside the bones. The snow was dirty near the roads. We watched the sky and listened to the radios. And the radios were full of words, and the words were full of lies. Our commanders told us, "Reinforcements are coming. Hold on a little. Another company is on the way. Armor will arrive soon." They said it like it was a warm blanket. But we were not children. We learned to smell when someone is covering fear with promises. They called again, repeated the same thing, and you could hear their breath, like they were running from their own responsibility. We waited, and no one came. The roads stayed empty except for civilian cars, people driving too fast, eyes wide, as if the city itself was trying to run away from the sound of tomorrow. So we did what we could with what we had. The bridges. Everyone understood the bridges. If the Russians push from the north and east, they will look for fast ways into Kyiv. A bridge is like a key in your pocket. You lose it, and the door opens for a chuzhi. Our sappers worked in silence, hands careful, faces gray with focus. They laid charges where they had to, measured, checked, and checked again. We helped when they asked, carried boxes, held flashlights under coats to hide the light. The river was black under the ice. It felt like the water itself was holding its breath, waiting for the first blast. At the same time, we built our own line. We dragged concrete blocks, metal hedgehogs, sandbags, anything that could slow down a column. Old tires, rails, even broken furniture from a warehouse someone opened for us. Territorial defense guys showed up in mixed clothes and new armbands, eyes burning, some with hunting rifles, some with nothing yet. They did not look like soldiers, but they looked like Kyiv. And that is a dangerous thing to face. My job that day was simple. Watch the approach and report. But in war, even simple eats your heart. You stare at an empty road until you start seeing ghosts on it. Every truck far away becomes a tank in your head. Every bird becomes a drone. The wind makes a sound and you lift your weapon without thinking. And then, behind us, the army started to move. Not in parade style, in working style. Columns of tanks rolled out, engines coughing, tracks biting into frozen ground. Infantry trucks followed, men packed tight, quiet, checking magazines, tapping each other's shoulders like, "You alive? I'm alive." Overhead, our aircraft cut the air. Not many, but the sound was ours, and it mattered. When you hear your own planes, you stand straighter. You remember you are not alone. We also had help already, even before the first missile hit Kyiv. I held a Western launcher once, heavy and strange in the hands, with English letters on it. America, Britain, Europe. They were not with us in the trenches, but their weapons were. Those launchers, those sights, those radios, the medical kits, they were like extra minutes in a fight where minutes decide if you see tomorrow. People argue about politics. In the mud, you do not argue. You say, "Thank you," and you learn how to use it fast. In the afternoon, a woman came to our checkpoint with a bag of sandwiches. No uniform, just a winter coat and tired eyes. She said,
"Boys, eat. You will need strength." We tried to refuse. She got angry like a mother. "Take it," she said.
I am not asking. That small thing hit me harder than any speech. It reminded me what we were standing for. That evening, when the sun went down early and the city lights blinked on, we sat near a small fire hidden behind a wall. We ate bread that tasted like smoke and shared tea that tasted like metal. Someone joked, weakly, about how Kyiv always survives, like an old stubborn babushka. We laughed, because if you do not laugh, you start shaking. I remember thinking, if reinforcements do not come, we will still hold. We will hold with mines, with barricades, with our own bodies if needed. And if the bridge has to go, it will go, because a broken bridge is better than an occupied street. That night, my phone had no signal. I looked at the dark line of the road one more time. It was still empty, but the emptiness felt heavy, like the pause before a door gets kicked in. I did not know yet what the next days would bring. I only knew this: we were already defending Kyiv, even before the war officially started. On February 24th, the war didn't start for us. It simply stopped hiding. Before dawn, the air changed. You know how it gets right before a storm, when even dogs don't bark? That's what it felt like. Then the first distant udar rolled across the city like someone slammed a giant door. Phones started ringing all at once. Radios came alive with shouting, half-words, broken orders. Our commander called again. Same voice, same promise. "Hold. Reinforcements are coming." We looked at each other in the dark and didn't answer with words. We answered by checking magazines, by tightening straps, by moving to the firing positions we had already chosen. The first hours were chaos and routine at the same time. Chaos because nobody truly knew which road the Russians would push first, and routine because a soldier's hands can work even when his head is screaming. We watched the approaches, the tree limes, the bridges we had mined, the fields that looked empty but could suddenly grow armor out of them. When the order came to destroy a bridge, it felt like ripping out your own tooth with pliers. That bridge was part of our land, part of our lives. People crossed it to go to work. Kids crossed it to go to school. But war doesn't ask what you love. War asks what you're willing to lose to keep something bigger. The sappers gave the signal. We pulled back. A second later, the blast punched the cold air and the bridge broke like old bread. Dust and snow flew up, and a piece of my heart flew with it. Still, we didn't cry. We just nodded. One more door locked. The Russians did not stop. They probed everywhere. Small groups, recon vehicles, sometimes just movement in the distance that forced you to stay frozen with your finger ready. And behind us, our own columns moved too. Tanks, infantry, trucks with ammo, men with tired faces. Kyiv was turning into a fortress while still trying to be a city. We fought in short moments, sharp, ugly moments, then long stretches of waiting. A burst of shots, then silence so loud it made your ears ring. Drones buzzed like angry flies. At some point, we heard that enemy aircraft were in the area, and we hugged the ground like it was our mother. Our own planes passed overhead once, fast and low, and even that small sound gave us courage, like, we are still here. We still have teeth. And the weapons. I won't lie. Help from the West mattered. When you have something that can stop armor, you breathe differently. I saw a young guy from territorial defense hold a modern launcher like it was a sacred thing. He whispered, "So this is what they sent." America and Europe were far away, but their support wasn't a rumor anymore. It was metal in our hands, bandages in our pockets, better radios that didn't die at the first bad moment. But even with that, We were thin, too few in some places, too stretched. Sometimes we called for support and got nothing but static, or a nervous voice saying, "Hold, hold, hold." That word can become poison when it's all you hear. On the third day of the invasion, we caught our first prisoner. It happened quick. A small enemy group tried to move through a side path near the trees, thinking we were blind. We weren't. We waited until they were close enough to hear their boots crunch the frozen ground. Shots cracked. Someone shouted. 2 ran back. 1 slipped and fell hard. When we reached him, he was shaking, not from cold, from the sudden understanding that his life had changed forever. He was young, younger than me, maybe 20, maybe 22. His face was dirty, eyes wide, breathing fast. He kept saying, "Don't shoot, don't shoot," in Russian, like a prayer. We pulled him behind cover, checked him for weapons, tied his hands. Nobody beat him. Nobody needed to. His fear did the job already. I asked him, "Why did you come here?" At first he lied. They always try. "Training," he said. "We got lost." My friend laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was insulting. Then the boy's shoulders sagged. He looked down at the ground and spoke quieter, like he was ashamed of the words even while saying them. "They told us that Ukraine was taken by Nazis," he said. "That people here were waiting for us, that we would be greeted, that NATO was preparing to attack us. They said it was defense. They said we're saving someone." He swallowed. His lips trembled. "And then we crossed the border and nobody greeted us. Only bullets, only burned vehicles, only your faces." I stared at him and felt something bitter rise in my chest. Not pity, something heavier. Because I knew this. Lies don't only kill the ones they target. Lies also destroy the ones who believe them. We reported the prisoner up the chain. Again, the command promised transport would come to take him and bring supplies for us. Again, we waited. Night fell. Kyiv's horizon glowed in strange colors. Not sunset, but fires and air defense flashes. We sat in a ruined shelter, passing a cigarette we shouldn't have had. I thought about that young Russian and about our own young guys, and about the stupid, cruel machine that had pushed all of us into the same cold dirt. Then my radio hissed. A voice said there was movement again near the road, heavier this time. I stood up, checked my weapon, and looked at my friends. "No reinforcements?" someone asked. I answered honestly, because by then, honesty was the only thing we still owned. "No," I said, "but we're here." And we went back into position because Kyiv was behind us, and behind Kyiv was everything. After that prisoner, I stopped believing in soon. When someone said soon, I heard never. When someone said reinforcements, I pictured an empty road and cold tea. We learned to plan like we were alone, and then be grateful if someone actually showed up. The next days around Kyiv were not one big battle like in films. It was hundreds of small ones. A roadblock here, a bridge blown there, a convoy spotted in the distance, a drone above your head, a sudden burst of shooting from a forest line, then silence again. You could lose a friend in the time it takes to blink, and then you still had to stand, because the city doesn't pause for your grief. We moved positions Chasta. One day we were near a bridge approach, next day closer to the city, then back again. The ground was torn by tracks and boots. The air smelled like burnt fuel and wet snow. Sometimes we slept sitting, leaning on our backpacks. Sometimes we didn't sleep at all, just closed eyes for 2 minutes and opened them again like a door. The commanders still lied, but not even from evil, mostly from panic. They didn't want to say, "We don't know." In our army, "I don't know" used to sound like weakness. But war teaches you. Weakness is lying. Truth is strength. One evening we were told, "A fresh unit will rotate you in the morning." Morning came. No unit. Only frost on the barrels and new orders. Hold. Enemy activity increasing. We held. We strengthened the checkpoints. We learned every side street, every ditch, every place where a vehicle could slip through. Territorial defense became real soldiers right in front of our eyes. Yesterday they were office workers and taxi drivers. Today they were standing beside us, sharing ammo, watching sectors, asking smart questions. Kyiv itself was learning to fight. Civilians helped in a way I will never forget. People brought hot tea in thermoses, food wrapped in towels, power banks, gloves, socks. A woman gave us candles and said, "If the lights go out, at least you will see each other's faces." An old man came with a bag of nails and wire, just put it down and said, "For your barricades, don't argue." When the city gives you that kind of support, you feel shame for ever doubting. The enemy tried to break in from the north in different ways. Sometimes small groups tried to sneak through village roads. Sometimes armored vehicles tested our lines, like a fist probing a door. We didn't have endless shells, so every shot had weight. We aimed carefully. We learned patience. My hands stopped shaking after the first days, not because I was brave, but because my body got tired of fear. Once we heard a heavy column was moving toward a route we covered. Tanks, infantry, support vehicles. We got the warning through radio and through messages. People everywhere were watching, passing information like blood through veins. Some of that intelligence came from our own eyes, some from drones, some from systems we didn't see. And that's where Western help mattered again, not only in weapons, but in the flow of information and in the pressure they put on Russia. Sanctions, diplomacy, support. These things don't stop a tank instantly, but they slow the monster down and make it hungry. That night, we set an ambush point. No Hollywood, no heroic speeches. Just quiet men in cold holes, waiting. We let the first vehicle pass into a bad spot, then hit the one that mattered most, the one that blocked the road. The sound was loud, and my chest jumped. Smoke rose into the dark like a black flag. The column hesitated. They didn't like uncertainty. Nobody does. They shot back, of course. Bullets snapped above us, hitting metal, concrete, tree bark. Dirt fell into my collar. My friend beside me whispered a swear word and laughed, and I laughed too, because it was absurd. Two men laughing while death was chopping wood around us. After that clash, we pulled back quickly, because staying in one place too long means artillery finds you. We moved through back routes, staying low, using darkness like a blanket. I remember stepping over a child's toy in a yard, some plastic car half buried in snow, and thinking, this is why we are here, so that the child who owns this toy can come back and play again. The prisoner was still with us for a while, because transport still didn't come. He sat in a corner, quiet, wrapped in a blanket someone donated. At one point, he spoke again, very softly. "We didn't think you would fight like this," he said. I answered him without anger, just tired truth. "This is our home," I said. "Where would we go?" He looked down like he finally understood the simplest thing on earth. When the transport finally arrived, days later, it was not some big, organized machine. It was a worn vehicle, a couple of men with exhausted eyes, and a quick handover, like passing a heavy bag. That's how it was then. Everything done with insufficient, everything held together by stubbornness. And still, Kyiv stood. Every evening, when we heard air defense working over the city, those sharp sounds in the sky, I felt something like pride mixed with fear, because it meant we were alive another day, because it meant the enemy still hadn't taken the heart. But the hardest part was coming. The moment when they would try again, bigger, more brutal, and we would have to decide how far we could bend without breaking. And we were already close to the edge. By then, I stopped counting days. I counted sirens, counted how many times the sky cracked, counted how many friends I still saw in the morning. Kyiv was alive, but it was a different kind of alive. No loud traffic like before, no easy laughs. The city moved like a man with a bruised rib, careful, quiet, always listening. At night, the windows were darker. People taped glass, dragged sandbags to entrances, wrote signs with arrows to shelters. The metro became a home for strangers, and strangers became family. And us, soldiers, we became part of the streets like lampposts, always there, always watching. We defended as best we could, not with big words, only with what we had. Hands, rifles, a few armored vehicles, drones when they worked, and those Western launchers that gave us a chance against armor. When a new box of aid came, medical kits, tourniquets, optics, it felt like someone put a second heart in your chest. America and Europe were still far away, but their help was not politics anymore. It was bint on a wound. It was a radio that didn't die. It was a weapon that could stop a machine that would otherwise roll over your friends. Still, it wasn't magic. You can't shoot support at a tank. You still need men. You still need sleep. You still need honest commanders. And honesty was rare. One night our commander told us, "Hold this line until morning. After morning, rotation." We held. Morning came. No rotation. Only new orders. Move. Enemy is probing closer. Move where? With what? With how many? Questions didn't matter. We moved because Kyiv was behind us, and behind Kyiv there was nothing to retreat into except shame. We kept building obstacles, metal hedgehogs, concrete blocks, anti-tank ditches where we could. We mined some approaches again, because the enemy kept searching for new paths like water finds cracks. Sappers worked until their fingers went numb. We covered them, because when a sapper is working, he is holding your whole line in his palms. The fighting got closer in small bites. One day you hear shots far away. Next day, you hear them like they're in your sosed's yard. You learn the sound difference between our rifles and theirs. You learn the ugly whoomp of artillery. You learn that silence can mean they're watching. We also learned something else. Kyiv itself was fighting with us. Civilians sent messages, shared locations, warned about movement, brought food and warm clothes. I remember a teenage boy bringing us a bag of batteries and saying, "For your flashlights, you'll need them." He spoke like a grown man, but his cheeks were still childish. I wanted to tell him to go home, to hide, to study like a normal kid. But what is normal when rockets fall? The prisoner's words stayed in my head too. After we handed him over, I couldn't forget his face. Not because I liked him, because he showed me how lies work. Later we captured another one, this time older, tougher, more angry. He was wounded in the leg, and he kept spitting insults even while we bandaged him. He called us names, said we were traitors, said Kyiv would fall in days. You could see he needed to believe it, the way a drunk man needs to believe he's not drunk. I asked him the same question. "Why did you come here?" He answered like he was reading from a script. "Orders," he said. "We are restoring order. You are not a real country." I looked at him and at the street behind me. Ukrainian street signs, Ukrainian houses, Ukrainian people bringing tea to soldiers. And I felt something hot rise in my throat. "This," I said, tapping the frozen ground with my boot, "is my order. This is my country." He laughed through his teeth. "They told us you would run. he said.
They said your army would drop weapons. They said you would welcome us. And now? I asked. He didn't answer. He only looked away, because the truth was standing right in front of him with a rifle and tired eyes. That's what I understood then. They attacked not because we threatened them, not because we wanted their land, not because we were Nazis or monsters. They attacked because someone above them decided Ukraine must not exist as a swobodna krayina, because freedom near them is like a mirror, and they hate what they see in it. The soldiers didn't always know the real reason, but the machine knew. The worst nights were when air defense worked non-stop. You'd hear a launch, then a loud udar somewhere, then another. The sky would flicker like lightning, but it wasn't weather, it was war. You sit in a trench or behind a wall and you think of your family under that sky. You think, please, not their street, please, not that building. I won't pretend I was fearless. I was scared plenty. I just learned to carry fear like a backpack. Heavy, always there, but you still walk. One morning we received a message. Enemy units were trying to regroup and push again toward certain routes into the capital. Our side had new positions to reinforce. The rumor went around that more Western aid was arriving, more systems, more ammunition. Rumors are dangerous, but hope is also a weapon if you don't let it blind you. We loaded what we could and moved again. Snow mixed with greyes, boots stuck, faces were gray from no sleep. Somebody quietly prayed. Somebody quietly cursed. I looked at my friends, men who hadn't shaved, men who laughed only with half their mouth, men who still stood up when they could have broken, and I realized something simple. Kyiv was not held by plans. Kyiv was held by people.
And right then, as we reached the next line, the radio hissed with urgent words about a new contact, about enemy vehicles spotted, about a point that had to be held or the whole sector would get harder. I took my position, pressed my cheek to cold cover, and whispered to myself, like a promise, not today, not here. And the next fight came to meet us. That last stretch near Kyiv felt like the whole world was narrowed into a few kilometers of road, trees, and cold ground. Everything important was behind our backs. Everything dangerous was in front of our eyes. The enemy tried again, heavier, louder, more confident. You could hear engines and feel the vibration in your boots before you even saw them. Vehicles moved in groups, probing, stopping, firing, then trying another angle. They were searching for the soft spot, and we were searching for the moment to bite back. We didn't have endless ammunition. We didn't have fresh men. We didn't have perfect plans. What we had was something simpler. We knew the land, and we knew the price of losing it. Our line held mostly because it was not one line. It was many. A roadblock here, a mined approach there, a small squad in trees, a drone above, a hidden anti-tank team waiting for the right shot. The enemy would move forward, hit something, slow down, then get hit again. That's how you stop a big machine when you don't have the same weight. You make it stumble, again and again, until it starts doubting its own legs. When a tank appeared on one of the approaches, my mouth went dry. Even if you have a launcher, a tank is still a tank. Steel that doesn't care about your feelings. We waited until it came into a place where it couldn't easily turn. Someone whispered, "Now." The shot went out. The impact came, and smoke poured like a black scarf around the metal. The tank didn't look defeated like in movies. It looked wounded and angry. But it stopped. And when a tank stops in a narrow route, everything behind it starts to panic.
That was our chance. We hit the vehicles that mattered most: logistics, command,
anything that slowed their movement. Then we moved positions fast because staying still is how you die in modern war. Drones spot you, artillery comes, and the earth becomes your coffin if you're unlucky. I remember carrying ammo with shaking arms, my fingers numb, my shoulders screaming. I remember a friend, Mikola, grabbing me by the vest and pushing me down as rounds snapped overhead. He didn't even look like he was thinking. He just did it. That's what brotherhood is. Not speeches. A hand on your chest at the right second. We took casualties. I won't name everyone here because names can break a man. But I will say this. Every loss felt personal, like someone tore a page out of your own life. And still, after the medics worked, after we tightened the line again, after we swallowed our grief like bitter medicine, we stayed. At one point, we captured another Russian soldier, and this one finally spoke like a human being, not like a loud radio. He was exhausted, his uniform dirty, eyes red from smoke and cold. He said, "We were told you would collapse. We were told Kyiv would be ours in days." "And why did you believe it?" I asked him. He didn't answer right away. He stared at the ground, then said quietly, "Because if we didn't believe it, we wouldn't have come." That sentence hit me hard. It was the clearest confession of the whole war. They had been fed a story so they could do something that would otherwise feel impossible. And when the story failed, when they met real resistance, real people, they broke in a different way. He also told us something else, almost like he needed to justify himself. "They said it was about NATO," he said. "They said it was about security, about history, about Russia being respected." He rubbed his face with his shoulder because his hands were tied. "But I don't think it was about that," he added, and his voice shook. "I think it was about you existing." That's the truth I carried after Kyiv. They attacked because our freedom is dangerous to their empire. Because a free Ukraine proves that their way of living, fear, lies, obedience, is not the only way. And they can't stand that proof right next to their border. As the weeks moved, the enemy started to lose the same confidence he came with. Not because he suddenly became weak, but because Kyiv refused to be easy. Every day we held forced them to spend more men, more fuel, more time. Their quick victory turned into mud and blood and uncertainty. And while we fought, the outside world pushed too. More help began to arrive. More weapons, more protective gear, more medical supplies, stronger sanctions, louder political pressure. It didn't replace our work, but it strengthened it. It meant we weren't shouting into the void. It meant someone heard us. There was one morning, cold, pale sunlight, when I stood on a road and realized something had shifted. The shelling was still there, danger still there, but the panic was different. It wasn't, "We're about to lose everything." It was, "We can hold this." I looked toward Kyiv, and I imagined normal life returning someday. Buses, children, coffee smells, loud markets, people arguing about stupid things again. That thought made my throat tighten. Not because it was sad, but because it was worth everything. When people ask me now, "How did you defend Kyiv?" I don't answer with tactics first. I answer with the simplest thing. We defended Kyiv because we had nowhere else to put our hearts. We were lied to by commanders. We were tired. We were short on men. Reinforcements didn't come when they promised. But we had our friends beside us. We had civilians behind us. We had help from abroad that gave us tools. And most of all, we had the ponimanya that if we step aside, a chuji will step into our home. So we didn't step aside. That's all. Kyiv didn't fall.
And in that, I found something I didn't even know I was searching for. Not glory, not revenge. Just a hard, quiet pride that I did my duty like a simple Ukrainian man. And I'm still standing.